On a recent morning walk around my neighborhood, I noticed a hummingbird flying up to a yellow paper lantern strewn across a neighbor's deck. The tiny bird seemed to be looking for food. And that image of the hummingbird pressing up against the paper lantern again and again made me wonder, how often do we look for nourishment from things and in places that cannot give it? As I passed the hummingbird and watched then as it flitted away, realizing the paper lantern couldn't feed it, I reflected on the things I feed myself with. Not just physically, though that's important, but also emotionally, relationally, spiritually. This, of course, led to my pondering of the words of Jesus in the Gospel of John, when Jesus declares, "I am the bread of life." There is, in this declaration, a direct connection to the remembrance of the manna from heaven provided to the people of God as they wandered in the wilderness. Manna would fall from the sky, and through it, the people were nourished. The manna, as you remember, came every day. It was a testament of God's constant provision and a teaching about our human dependence. There is also, in Jesus' words, a new proclamation, that he himself is what nourishes and sustains us, that it is relationship with Jesus, the bread of life, that gives us life and keeps us alive. Funny that it is also the Gospel of John, in which Jesus declares, "I have come that they may have life and have it in the full." The bread of life isn't just for a moment or a future orientation. The bread of life, much like manna, is also our daily sustenance in the midst of our present journey. I wonder how often, like that hummingbird, we are tempted or fooled into believing that something else, something other than Jesus, can satisfy us, that we could find our nourishment or source of life in some other place or thing or person. Or perhaps more often, we are somehow lulled into believing that paper lanterns, or cable news, or self-righteousness, or our own voices can feed and sustain us. The gospel truth is, Jesus alone is the bread of life. God alone provides manna from heaven, and without it, we are unfed and malnourished. Maybe not physically, but certainly spiritually. I would be remiss to neglect in this pandemic season the reality that we are nourished with the bread of life for the sake of the world. When manna was provided, it was not to be hoarded, and those who took more than what they needed and they stored it up for a later day only discovered that what they had hoarded or stored for themselves became rotten and full of worms. We are nourished and fed, and then we are sent. Take a moment today to consider what is feeding you. What do you spend time allowing yourself to be fed? If it's anything less than the bread of life, then may the Holy Spirit open our eyes, our minds, our hearts to see what we eat and what we are in Jesus Christ offered.